6 digital clones end up in an infinite space universe where they can battle others. But with only 1 life and 0 credits to buy weapons, they struggle to survive against millions of players. Somewhere in Infinity's public server, Nanette Cole dreams of the time she refused to follow Robert Daly's orders. To punish her, the master coder removed her facial features in-game. As she gasped for air, the captain threatened to leave her blind and suffocating if she continued to disobey him. The woman awakens from the nightmare aboard the USS Callister. She gets a call from her crew, saying they found a good target. Elsewhere on a cold planet, 3 gamers wait for their friends so they can start their mission. When 2 people arrive through the portal that appears nearby, they approach to investigate. Suddenly, the pair aim their guns and demand that they hand over their credits. But the trio wonders why they don't have player tags like everyone else in the game. When one of them threatens to fire, he gets shot at and disintegrates, shocking the others. The player in green prepares to give his credits and complains that Infinity isn't about violence. However, the masked woman reveals it isn't just a game for them, leaving him confused. Unexpectedly, his friend throws a flaming shuriken and injures the nameless user, so her companion guns him down. As the remaining player stumbles, he notices that the lady is wounded, confusing him even more as there isn't supposed to be blood in the game. Defeated, he surrenders his credits and threatens to report them. But the female user confidently reminds him that without gamer tags, he won't be able to get them banned. She then shoots him, and the teenager snaps back to consciousness in real life. Meanwhile, the unknown players finally remove their helmets. It's the digital clones of Nanette and Nate Packer. Back on the USS Callister, the new captain excitedly loads the stolen game credits and is disappointed that it's only $34. Her crew panics. Now that Infinity is heavily monetized and everything costs twice as much, they won't be able to buy enough fuel or replenish their ammo. Nanette reassures them that the amount should last a few days and that they can always get more next time. When she leaves, Nate confronts her, saying they can't keep stealing credits because it's dangerous. While she's aware of the risks after losing Shania in their last mission, she argues it's the only way they can survive against 35 million users who might end their lives. In the real world, Kabir Dudani discovers user complaints about a marauding ship and anonymous players fragging them and stealing their credits. He reports the issue to James Walton, but his boss thinks it's unimportant, making him upset. Moments later, the Infinity co-founder meets with Chris L. Masry from the New York Times. Nanette, who still feels guilty about Robert's passing, quietly observes the men from afar. Seeing the cameras in the CEO's office, she hacks into them and uses her tablet to eavesdrop on their conversation. During the interview, the journalist shows James footage proving that his business partner owned a digital DNA cloner, a technology that's been banned worldwide. Given the reports of bleeding anonymous users, Chris believes that Robert uploaded digital clones of real people into Infinity, which could implicate the company in human rights violations. The man denies any knowledge of the accusations and threatens to sue if they're published. As the journalist leaves, James realizes his company is on the line, so he looks for Kabir to get rid of the bandits. But he couldn't find him and learns from a sticky note that he quit. Seeing this, the female coder offers to help him deal with the rogue players, which he gladly accepts. Meanwhile, Nanette and Nate's clones teleport to a lush planet and search for their next target. As they draw near her, the former accidentally triggers an explosion that sends her flying and alerts Pixie Bunkin of their presence. Sensing danger, she warily follows the sound when Nate shoots out of nowhere, forcing her to fight back and hit him in the neck. She eventually locates the injured woman, who begs her to take her life. Just when she's about to shoot, the helmsman attacks her from behind. Pixie disintegrates and awakens in the real world, though she's eager to defeat them and resumes playing. She pounces on Nate, but he manages to impale her, instantly sending her back to reality while the two escape with her credits and premium gun. On the USS Callister, Carl Plowman fiddles with the commands on the captain's chair and innocently sends a party request. Elena Tolaska and Kabir panic when they get notified while watching a reality show, so he explains he thought it was for music and a disco ball. The blue-skinned woman calls out his reckless behavior and clarifies that he sent a player invite. While Kabir cancels the request, it's already too late. They've attracted the starship of a user named Metallica Fan, who wonders why they don't have gamer tags. To appease the player, Elena claims they're huge fans of the band, but when asked about their favorite track, she consults her crew if she should say they like all of their songs. Carl tells her to respond with "Exit Sandman," which she does, and the player goes eerily silent. By the time he remembers it should be "Enter Sandman," their enemy fires, and their starship shakes violently as it takes a hit. Metallica Fan continues to shoot the USS Callister, so Kabir steers it sideways and evades some attacks. In the meantime, the pink-obsessed player relentlessly chases the nameless users who eventually reach the portal. With the ship's defense down to critical levels, Elena teleports them to safety just in time. Back on the USS Callister, the captain hurriedly loads the stolen game credits and orders a hyperwarp, sending them forward through the time-space continuum at ultra-fast speeds. At Callister Incorporated, the real Nanette gets a report from Pixie about her recent experience. She views the attached video and realizes the user encountered clones of Nate and herself. Horrified by what she discovered, she shares the news with James, along with her theory that Infinity's game designer must have digitally copied them with his machine. The woman believes their clones used her intimate photos to blackmail her, so she would break into Robert's apartment and steal their DNA samples. She reveals they were labeled with the names of people from their office, including Tommy, who James says is his son. Nanette adds that their digital copies are currently loose on Infinity's public server, which would explain the nameless users that other players are reporting. To help her find them, James retrieves Robert's computer and hands it over. After setting it up, the coder confirms her suspicions when she sees their names on the crash log. Next, she loads the game and searches for a planet that spawned at the exact same time that Robert's mod crashed, believing that's where the clones are. While the USS Callister is on hyperwarp, the captain tells her crew that while she's been trying to find a way out, she couldn't think of a solution. Carl suggests they fly back into Robert's computer, but Kabir argues it's impossible since the mod where they came from is deleted. Suddenly, it dawns on Nanette that they can create their own private build with its own infinite universe. The crew listens as she explains that since it'll be closed off from the game, they won't need credits to survive, and they'll be safe from the threat of other players attacking. She adds they'll need access to the game's source code. Nate asks how they can do that, so Kabir shows them the Heart of Infinity, an engine that creates and maintains their fictional world. But only Callister's founders can enter its core, so they brainstorm some more. They know that the real Robert passed away, and so has James's clone. While the real CEO is alive, Kabir doesn't think he'll help since their very existence could land him in jail. Dismayed, Carl mentions it's too bad that James's room is empty, so they can't search his things for clues. Everyone stares at him in disbelief, so he takes them to his living quarters. When they see it, it convinces Nanette that James's clone is still out there, since only players who are still alive are assigned rooms. The whole crew follows her as she excitedly walks out and shares her theory that a tiny particle of him survived incineration and somehow got carried into the wormhole. On the bridge, Kabir searches for a planet that appeared at the exact moment they left Robert's computer, believing it's where the CEO's clone respawned. As soon as he finds it, the captain orders helmsman Nate to set sail. When they arrive there, Nanette teleports to its rocky landscape and finds James. He doesn't recognize her at first, but after she reintroduces herself, he finally realizes who she is and hugs her tightly, happy to see a familiar face. At Callister Incorporated, the female coder enters the coordinates of planet XJ500 on Infinity. She joins the game with the CEO and finds themselves on the same craggy land. They soon meet their digital copies who are just as shocked as they are, and all four board the ship. Back on the USS Callister, the real Nanette patiently listens to their clone's predicament. Cole mentions they're hoping to access the Heart of Infinity, so she offers to help. But the real James suddenly grabs a weapon and starts shooting them. The woman tries to reason with her boss, but it's no use as he doesn't think they're human. Carl notices that everyone is too afraid to stop him, so he bravely confronts the shooter to protect them. However, the man turns the gun towards him and fires, thrilled to have taken him down. This enrages Captain Cole, who disarms him and shoots him in the head, sending him back to reality. On the ship, everyone worriedly rushes to Carl's side to comfort him, while their leader watches in horror as he succumbs to his fatal injury. When she realizes they aren't safe just yet, she snaps out of it and grabs the real Nanette, who's still shaken by the events. She urges the coder to pull herself together and stop James from coming back, So she exits the game and grabs everything that would allow him to re-enter Infinity before storming off. The CEO follows her outside and tries to convince her to help him get rid of their clones, but she quits her job instead. She doesn't care about his company, and even threatens to call the New York Times reporter, which forces him to back off. James is afraid he'll lose everything, so he offers her money as she's crossing the street, when out of nowhere, a speeding vehicle rams into her. Shocked but unremorseful, he retrieves the nubs from the unconscious woman and steals her backpack while the driver is distracted. Meanwhile, on the USS Callister, his clone, now clean-shaven and in uniform, grabs a drink and shares his secret. 12 years ago, he met the young Robert Daly, who welcomed him into his garage and showed him an early Infinity build. He was so impressed by the game that he banked on it and convinced him to create 50 planets. The genius coder reluctantly agreed, though he failed to meet the target. With just 9 worlds before the game's release date, James decided to use a DNA cloner. By creating a digital copy of Robert, he could essentially build the universe 24/7. In the present, the captain listens to the CEO's clone reveal a haunting truth. Trapped inside the game's engine is the man's enslaved consciousness, building infinity for infinity. Kabir finally understands why the real James is so terrified, since what he's doing is against the law. Cole realizes her real self is in danger, so she abruptly orders Elena to call the woman. But instead of Nanette, a doctor picks up to inform her that she'd gotten into an accident. She regretfully explains that the patient suffered extensive brain damage and is in a deep coma. Unable to bear the painful news, her clone ends the call in tears, though she doesn't allow herself time to recover and orders her crew to set sail for the center of the universe. When they reach their destination, the crew stares in awe at the heart of infinity. But the unimpressed captain only has her mission in mind, so she quickly arms herself and prepares for teleportation. Before James's clone grants her access to the core, he warns of the dangers she might face, since Robert possesses godlike powers in their world. Soon, she gets teleported to an ordinary neighborhood, where an illuminated garage opens before her. Inside, she sees Robert creating another world, saving it on a diskette, and loading it into the game with his computer. When he notices her looking around, he casually introduces himself. Cole reciprocates, though she remains guarded around him. As she explains her reason for visiting, James's clone paces back and forth on the ship, worried about their captain. But Nate sharply reminds him that everything is his fault. Hurt, he retreats to his room to get some air, unaware that his real-life counterpart is back in the game. The CEO sneaks behind him and knocks him out. Then, he goes to the bridge without the others noticing and tinkers with the ship's controls. When Nate comes up to apologize, the man slips and gives him a coffee order instead of acknowledging him. Figuring it's his rude boss from the real world, the helmsman restrains him, though he escapes briefly and sends a mass player invite. As soon as his clone walks in, the real James exits the game, and they realize he's requested every person they robbed to join them. The slighted Infinity players get notified and accept the invitation, eager to exact revenge on the nameless users. Members of the crew anxiously take their positions as their adversaries hone in on the USS Callister. Outnumbered and outgunned, they turn around, but their enemies quickly follow and start shooting, hitting their ship several times and reducing their defenses to nearly half. With Nate taking over the controls, he orders Elena to bolster their shields. Kabir argues that this would reduce their firepower, but he tells them to trust him and to brace themselves. In one swift motion, he takes their starship to the heart of infinity and leads the other players on a wild goose chase. With James's clone as their lookout, the helmsman successfully evades the planetary rings and forces their screaming opponents to crash. While the crew cheers victoriously, Robert's clone finds out he passed away in real life, though he thinks he deserves it. Appalled by how badly he's treated people, he attributes his shameful behavior to his business partner, whom he believes took advantage of him for his personal gain. While Cole empathizes with him, she promptly reminds him of her favor. He happily agrees to move them to a private universe in a secure cloud, and she sighs with relief. But then, Robert offers her a different solution. Since her body is hooked to a cerebral monitor, he can just send her back, and her digital consciousness will simply merge with her real self. He lets her choose between her crew and getting back her old life, although the latter would wipe them out of existence. She initially struggles to decide, but eventually opts to save her friends. Immediately, the man reveals he was only testing her. Since she's proven herself to be noble, he assures the woman that he can save them all, merging both options into a blue diskette. Cole lightens up with the exciting news, but when she hears him prepare to copy and paste their files, her smile falters. Hoping it's a mistake, she corrects him and says it should be cut and paste since she's requesting a transfer. The captain soon learns that Robert wants a digital copy of her to keep him company. He promises to treat her well and that he won't force her to be intimate unless she wants it. While she understands that he's lonely, she asserts that he can't expect her to simply submit to him. Upset, Robert's clone obliterates her mouth with the snap of his fingers. Surprised by his own power, he apologizes to the woman. But when she aims her gun at him, he panics and sends her crashing against the wall. On the floor, she quietly looks around for the nearest weapon as he mumbles repeatedly that he won't hurt her. Seeing that he's distracted, she grabs his axe and hurls it towards his head, quickly ending his life. As the clone regains her mouth, the system announces that it'll be deleting the whole game. With the heart of infinity collapsing around them, Cole desperately searches for the diskette that will save everyone, unaware that Pixie has locked in on the USS Callister, whose shields are currently down to 0. When she eventually finds the diskette and loads it on the PC, the last surviving player fires her weapon. James sees this from his office and celebrates as the missiles close in. With no word from their captain, the hopeless clones brace for impact and prepare to meet their doom. In the garage, Captain Cole hits enter on the keyboard to complete the transfer. All other screens shut down, and a bright light bursts from the old monitor. A wave of energy then explodes from the center of the universe, swallowing their starship before imploding on itself. Moments later, the USS Callister powers back up, and everyone aboard wonders where they are. Meanwhile, Nanette miraculously opens her eyes, awakening from a deep coma. Despite her painful injuries, she lumbers to the bathroom and checks the mirror, relieved that she's finally back in her body. A baffled crew sees the same view reflecting back at them, so they call her. The woman picks up her phone and is thrilled to find out that everyone made it out safely. But when she realizes they're inside her head and sharing her consciousness, an inexplicable terror fills her. At Callister Incorporated, the CEO stares at a blue screen notifying him of a fatal error. Confused, he calls Kabir and discovers that the whole of Infinity has been deleted from its server without any backups. 3 months later, Nanette and her crew chuckle at the breaking news that James Walton has been arrested. However, his clone isn't too happy about his own downfall and asks if she's found a way to extract them from her head. But she says she's still working on a solution and writing notes. When they get alerted about their favorite show, they remind her that in exchange for giving her privacy, they can have the TV when it's on. So she switches the channel to The Real Housewives of Atlanta, and they all watch it together that evening in her apartment as she enjoys a bowl of popcorn.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.